The following video will provide instructions for calibrating the part length on any HE&M bandsaw that uses the A-1 control. This would include bandsaws with the A-1 control like the H90 A-1 and Sidewinder A-1 saw models. Follow all safety precautions and warnings to minimize the chance of injury. Once the saw and the bar feed are level from front to back and side to side, the part length calibration can be performed. This procedure should be performed whenever a saw is first installed, moved, or the part lengths are not within an acceptable tolerance range. Typically, if the feed rate and cutting pressure are properly set for the blade and material, the material is correct for the saw model, the blade is correct for the material, and a high-quality cutting lubricant is being used, the saw should repeat within plus or minus 5/1000ths of an inch. Before calibrating the part length, first some test parts will need to be cut and measured. Move the auto feed switch downward to feed. This brings the bar feed shuttle off of the shuttle stop. Walk to the rear of the saw and turn the digital readout handle to set the part length for a short part, like 500/1000ths or 750/1000ths of an inch. Always pass the desired length in the digital readout by 10 or 15/1000ths, and then slowly return in a downward numerical sequence to the new length being set. This removes the gear lash and sets the gears in the digital readout, or DRO, to the most accurate position. Test cutting can be done with any material suitable for the saw and blade, but selecting a relatively small, solid material that is easily measured with a caliper is the most convenient. Solid, low-carbon, round material, 2 inches to 3 inches in diameter, makes good test cut material. With the cutting pressure and feed rate properly set, place the material flat on the saw bed and positioned just slightly past the blade in order to begin the automatic cutting sequence with a trim cut. Zero out the parts counter and set the parts required part count to 3. Position the material past the blade the appropriate distance for the trim cut and put the clamp switch in close. Move the feed switch to the auto position. This retracts the feed to position it to index the first part after the trim cut is made. Start the motor by moving the motor switch to the top or on position. For Sidewinder A-1 models, it is also required to press both green buttons below the control to start the motor. The motor will start and the blade will turn. Be sure the blade speed is set correctly for the type of material being cut and that the feed rate and cutting pressure are also set properly. Move the arm switch to the center or neutral position. This will allow the arm to fall, cutting the trim part. When the arm completes the cut, and starting from the right to left, move all of the switches up to the auto position. The auto switch was already positioned there, and press the spring-loaded start switch up. The arm will raise, the feed clamp will close, the saw clamp will open, the feed shuttle will move forward, bringing the material forward to the length set in the DRO, and then the saw clamp will close and the arm will begin to fall, cutting the first part. After the saw vise closes and the arm begins to fall, the feed will retract to position for the next part index. When the first cut is complete, the cycle will repeat until all 3 parts are cut. The arm will then rise and the motor and blade will stop. Measure the length of each part using precision calipers. The part lengths should be within plus or minus 5/1000ths of each other. However, if the part lengths are not within plus or minus 5/1000ths of the desired length, that is, the length set in the DRO at the rear of the saw, an easy calibration of the DRO can be made. Return to the rear of the saw. The process will differ depending on which version of the DRO exists on the saw, but the concept is the same. If the saw was made prior to mid-year 2005 and has an older style digital readout, one that is encased in a gray sheet metal box, the 4 screws holding the sheet metal cover will need to be loosened. Lift the cover off of the DRO and set it aside. Beneath the base that the digital readout is mounted on, there are 4 screws. Remove 3 of the screws and leave, but loosen, the 4th screw that is holding the top right of the DRO when viewed from above. Swing the DRO out to disengage the gears, and turn the gear that changes the number readout to the length closest to the actual test part lengths cut. So, the DRO is being changed to read what the saw is actually cutting. For example, if the part length is set for 500 thousandths of an inch, but the test parts measure 520 thousandths of an inch, change the numerical readout to 520 thousandths of an inch. If the saw was manufactured after mid-year 2005, it likely has the newer style DRO and is even easier to calibrate. The initial parts of the process are the same, all the way up through the test cuts, but changing the DRO readout is easier. This orange-colored DRO has a black collar on a shaft that turns and changes the numerical readout. There is a small set screw that holds the collar onto the shaft. Loosen the set screw with an Allen wrench, and using the wrench as a lever, turn the readout past and then back down to the actual part length measured on the 3 test cuts, and tighten the set screw. With either style DRO, it is advisable to recheck the part length by cutting a few more short parts in automatic mode to verify that the part length is within plus or minus 5 thousandths of an inch. This completes the length calibration process for the HE&M Saw horizontal bandsaws with the -1 control.